Recording started.
Cool. So hello everyone. Welcome to this certification Q&A session with Linux Foundation training and certificate from the Mr. Darrell Flewell will be taking up this session. So on behalf of Hyperledger Sweden, I'd like to welcome everyone to this session. So this is this is Prajit Datta from Hyperledger Sweden. One of our main motive to drive the community and encourage developers to try and test the Hyperledger blockchain frameworks. And I'd like to touch upon the initiative. For that reason only we are conducting this session. So we are running an online certification study circle. Basically it's like an intensive program. We do weekly sync-ups where people come, collaborate, decide how much they wanted to learn for a period of 1 week, and then they share their knowledge, do a quick summary revision, and that's how we proceed. In the whole thing, we are targeting actually 3 certifications I'd like to showcase to everyone. So basically, we are planning to cover certified Hyperledger Fabric administrator, Sawtooth admin, and the Fabric developer. So in the online study circle, we have decided 6 major milestones. So for the first, there are 2 free basic online courses from Linux Foundation through edX, which the link has been shared, that we are planning to complete. We have already done that as a group. We have also completed the second milestone, which is on Hyperledger Indy. That also has been done in the last week. Now on this Saturday, we meet on every Saturday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. for two weekends, and then the regular time is from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central European time zone. And then after that, the 4th milestone is a Sawtooth course. We'll be doing it from Linux Foundation. It is on the edX, and also there are some like a training material from the Sawtooth for Sawtooth admin from Linux Foundation. And with that, we are planning to do the Sawtooth certification. Post that, we'll move to Fabric developer and then Fabric admin. This has been decided by taking up the feedback from the people who have already appeared for the examination, and also for the people from the community. So there are 2 important links. If you're not part of this community, feel free to join. There is one certification study circle Slack channel. There's a short link, tinyurl.com/hyperledger study circle. Where you can connect with a lot of other people. They are sharing knowledge on different frameworks. It's a very active community. And so it's a very active community. People are sharing knowledge, and they are taking a different take on different approaches. It's a good community we have built up there. And also, if you wanted to get a notification of the events or wanted to do an RSVP on the events, then go to our meetup.com, meetup.com/Hyperledger Sweden. So as I mentioned, that we are meeting on every Saturday for 1 hour, discussing the targets for 1 week, and then moving on. So with this, I'd like to pass on to Mr. Darrell Flewell from Training and Certification Team of Linux Foundation. He will be taking up the session, and you can take up all your queries. And also in this call, Mr. David Boswell from Linux, from Hyperledger, Director of Ecosystem, he has joined. So welcome, David.
Thank you. And before we hand it over to Darrell, Prajit, I saw that there was one question for you about the study circle in the chat about if somebody hasn't been to the study circle yet, how should they engage with the group? Is there a way to restart, or how? If you want to respond to that question in chat.
Yeah, absolutely, David. So if you haven't not started with the study circle group, then it's completely fine. You can really catch up, but you have to complete the basic courses. But you need to put more time and try to finish it off. We have not engaged into the more certification related material now, like the Sawtooth admin. I mean, we are planning to do it after 2 weeks. We'll start a sort of dedicated learning demonstrations, what I will say, code demonstrations and everything, and learning step by step. So You are not late, but you need to wrap up fast. You all are welcome to join the group. Yes, David.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so I'll stop sharing the screen, and Darrell, it's all yours.
Oh, great. Thanks, Prajit. Just give me a second to get the screen share switched over. This is where on every Zoom call I've ever been on, someone says, "Can you see my screen?" And then 40 people respond.
Yep.
Right? So, but, oh yeah, David, if you can monitor the chat just so I can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, try to stay somewhat attentive to the presentation, and hopefully jump around to some of the websites and things just so I can demonstrate some of the things we're going to be talking about. And we are recording, so that will also be there, for people to look at later as well. There are a lot of slides, but a lot of them I'm going to just pass over, so they'll be there in the recording. Also, we can share the deck after, and some of that is, good for reference information, right? So that generally I think should be a good approach. Okay, so let's see. I was gonna, yeah. Started. I'm going to run through a bunch of slides on the Linux Foundation, which you either know already, or it's a quick refresh, or it's something you can look back on. But it's good to kind of set the context. I use this presentation in other areas, so that's why I didn't want to tear it apart too much, but I just added in other sections that we'll get to that are more relevant, and I think you'll find interesting as we really hit kind of the pain points on the training offerings and the certification exams themselves. So this is also a good time if you do these things and you walk around and like to pet the dog and just listen. This is when you would do that, the first 2 or 3 sections, and then I'll ring a bell or something when we're at the real critical point where you want to be listening intently. So you can go, practice, pet the dog, that kind of thing, until then. The demand for talent is something we do look at across the board. We'll share a little bit about that. The training and cert program, we'll get into the Hyperledger training partners, where you can find those, and then the exam and training feedback and what you can do and should be doing specifically to prepare. I'll call it right now, Prajit, what you're setting up is absolutely on the money for what people are going to need in order to be successful. There's just no other way to do it and come out on top. There's too much information. Training only gets you so far, and honestly, these exams are hard and like nothing you've ever seen before as far as a testing environment, likely. So yeah, all important. The intro to the foundation, yeah, the history's there. I'm not going to go into it, but obviously we've been at this a while, and we sponsor the work of the Linux creator Linus Torvalds. Our somewhat verbose mission statement, again, we're doing our best to accelerate open technology development, including commercial adoption. We are the neutral home for the world's most important projects. You are on this particular webinar call and talking about studying for Hyperledger, obviously. That's a key project with many others that you probably are also aware of. Again, Linux has become the most important software in the world. Speaking to everyone who probably already understands that in some way, shape, or form, certainly you would have had that experience prior to moving into blockchain technologies and other open source projects like Hyperledger. This slide simply depicts the vertical markets where Linux or open source software is the dominant player. And again, we have seen unprecedented growth in our projects right across the entire ecosystem in tech. And obviously moved well beyond just the Linux kernel itself in all of these other industries and ecosystems. Today we're talking about blockchain ecosystem and Hyperledger as a project itself. Just a picture collage. I was just presenting more visually across the board where Linux is found in our households today. Our recognition for what we're doing at the foundation. This is a sampling that we pulled out. There are many. We were the only nonprofit recognized 3 consecutive years in a row now, for our critical role in the tech industry. I talked about the demand for talent a little bit and how we partner and do white paper and research reports to back that up. We have a large member base of organizations, and we owe back to them as many technically trained people as possible. And the jobs report is a survey that goes through, we talk with hiring managers, talk to the field of talent, and put together statistics that you can certainly look into later. Based on where you are now, I think you'll already realize that the career potential, especially something coming to fruition like Hyperledger itself is, you're obviously positioned very well. Getting into the Linux Foundation training platform, again, I'm going to go relatively quickly through these to get to the meat of what we want to talk about. But we've put, I think, 1.5 million people now have participated in the edX MOOC classes that we've published. And I think as in the study circle, you've already seen that you're working through some of the specific edX classes geared to Hyperledger. And again, our training capabilities at the foundation, we do cover the other projects as best we can, particularly those that have a community strong enough to support and demand training and certification as their career might mandate it, or what have you. So that community does play an important role in pushing where we devote resources. Certainly Hyperledger is way at the top of that list right now. We do have other certifications. The certification capability, we feel is very unique. It's 100% online. It's a performance-based exam platform. And, while we focus on what we call somewhat entry-level certification, that's still that large cap C certification, I guess. So there's other certificates of completion and things through the courses, but the certification itself is important. It also allows other specialized certifications to still exist alongside, and the certifications do support each other. David, just a quick check over to you if there's anything that came up in the chat or anything that we want to check on?
There are a couple things that just popped up. Yeah. Do you want to take questions now?
You know, if it's a showstopper for sure, or if it's something that, you know, we can clear up that will help us move and be focused on the exam and the training feedback, then yeah, we can easily clear it up now. Sure. You know, it's fluid, right? You know, I'm flexible. It's up to you.
Looks like one of the questions is something that you already said that you were going to cover. It says, how difficult is the learning curve to become a Hyperledger Fabric developer? There's some questions just about Hyperledger in general. How is Hyperledger different from Ethereum that I can answer later? And then there's a question about can't find recent tutorials on YouTube. Is the Hyperledger community active or not? I can speak to that. Maybe you take the learning curve one, and it sounds like you're already going to do that, and then I'll answer the other ones after you're done.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll definitely be talking about the level of difficulties and the learning curve, which depending on your experience certainly can be steep. You know, and we'll talk a little bit about what experience level you might be and how that will, you know, how that might dictate your next moves, for sure. I wanted to get into specifically now the training with regards to blockchain. I think in one of your previous webinars, and David, I think Daniela pulled this particular study out. I think LinkedIn Learning did this one, where blockchain is at the top of the list for hard skills. And we certainly see that as well, anecdotally in some ways, also backed up by other studies and surveys that are happening. So it definitely is a skill in need. And when we talk about later the learning curves and where you might be and how difficult you might find the exam, I want to make, you know, kind of make a bookmark for this this career path slide, because I think you can also use it as a bit of a checklist as to where you might be and what you might want to be working on. I imagine maybe that in the study circle, Prajit, you kind of talk a little bit about what the experience level is and where people might be. If you want something that kind of formalizes it a little bit more, then use this career path slide, because what we're saying and the feedback that we're receiving, you know, kind of proves this out, is when you're at the point of taking the 200 level trainings that map as best they can to the certifications, you're senior in the sense of being working, you know, having been working with the technology, right? So that varies for everybody. It's not a perfect formula, but certainly this is a great place to start. It can be used as a guide. I mentioned in the when I was setting up the agenda about Hyperledger training partners, and I wanted to focus in on these guys just for a few minutes, and then you'll see where we end up with the Linux Foundation training specifically, because the Linux Foundation is also a Hyperledger training partner. The Hyperledger project, I guess launched this program a couple of years ago to try to formalize those training organizations that were offering training that had been kind of vetted by the learning and development group within Hyperledger, and you know, they were doing, I guess, meeting certain standards to that training to allow professionals with blockchain skills to move into a professional career. And there's requirements for those training partners that both David and I work on to go through what that training partner is doing, what they might need to still shore up as far as their program before they get listed. And once they do pass, then they are able to be listed as a Hyperledger training partner. I was just going to show you real quick where you can find those, because depending on, again, that blockchain career path, some might be farther along than others, but you also want to be aware of what's out there, much like the Hyperledger itself, depending on the ledger, there's training that can be specific to certain needs that others might not have. So this is on the hyperledger.org website under resources training, and then Hyperledger training partners, and they're listed here. You can look through, browse those at your leisure. There's a few and somewhat geographically distributed, and what I'm looking for at the end is that the Linux Foundation training group is also situated here as a training partner, and I think that's good. The Linux Foundation is not the be-all and end-all of training on Hyperledger, and if anyone is saying that they are, then you probably might want to run the other way, because it's just not possible to develop a training that covers everything, that's going to meet every individual learner's needs, and have them go in and sit the exam, yes, pass the exam, hopefully, but the real goal, right, is to be prepared to work and be paid, doing a job for an employer or for yourself as a consultant, in a way that's not going to get you, not going to give you the result you weren't looking for, right? So that's where they are. Okay, and again, I'm pulling this slide. It's a busy one. I pulled this from the Hyperledger training training partner presentation that group had. It's doing a good job of putting everything on one page. The certs that Prajit also talked about that are focused on in the study group, and it gives a list of the blockchain MOOCs. These are the ones up in the edX.org forum. All of these, again, can be found with the URL listed at the bottom right. And brings me to where, okay, so this is kind of the part where it drills in a little deeper, that if you're thinking of taking one of these exams, you might want to listen a little bit more closely. Maybe something will sit for you that will contribute to your successful completion. Quick breath. So David, how are we doing? I'm going to take a sip of coffee while we regroup and everyone's.
There was a question about the training partner program. I'll read it. If a training academy is teaching other blockchains such as Ethereum, can they still apply to be a partner training firm for Hyperledger?
They certainly can. They don't only have to train for Hyperledger, not at all. And I think most of them are. I think some of the training partners even have their own blockchain ledgers, right? But no, it's an open ecosystem. And if that training partner is going to devote some resources to training on Hyperledger, then absolutely they're welcome to apply.
Great. No other questions about the training partner stuff.
Okay. The exams. There's 3 currently. The Certified Hyperledger Fabric Developer just went live in March. We haven't done a data collection yet on that, but we have some relatively good data on the Sawtooth Administrator and the Fabric Administrator exams. They've been out a little bit longer. A lot more of a weighting to the Fabric Administrator, just given where that technology is in, in its life cycle, there's a lot more interest in it. Certainly, if you're specializing in sawtooth, then that exam is still relevant and for you. So what I did to prepare, when I was asked the question to talk to those that are, in the study circle, preparing for the exam and in current training, so I went back through the exam feedback, of which we collect at the end of every exam sitting. And so we can look through, dig in. That holds true for the training courses as well, which I'll get into. But when I went through, there's hundreds of responses, but two big ones jumped out as, first of all, as to why they're taking the test, because we asked that question, and it was heavily weighted to their employer was requiring it or preferring that for a move into this area, and that was alongside this person's own need to validate their skills, which would then go towards them being more confident, let's say, applying for those jobs. So it as a newer technology, there's not a lot out there, right? You can't say you've been working on it for 10 years in order to validate your skill, right? There needs to be another way, and these certifications are a way to do that. I couldn't help but pull out one, a big surprise for that individual, who somehow made it all the way to the exam thinking it was going to be a multiple choice. It is not. It's not a multiple choice exam. That is not how we test in a practical way. So yeah, that's something to note. The other stat I pulled out is over 60% of the people who have attempted the certifications thus far have either no experience working with Hyperledger or less than 1 year experience. Well, and what does that exactly mean? There could be a lot to that. What I think that means is, first of all, we have a new technology, newish technology that's just coming into commercial sweet spot. So there aren't a lot of people out there yet with experience. It also says to me that there's a lot of people jumping into the exam early on based on the results that I don't think are preparing or going in with some blinders on based on what maybe our historic vision of what an IT certification was going to be. The same statistics showed me that 48% took no formal prep or training. Those that did take a training, which were 33% of them, took an LF training. So a lot of people not preparing at all formally, and that's okay. But whatever it is they did, it doesn't appear to be enough, because the results just don't show it. So I saw time and time again that people said the training by itself was not enough. They might have taken a course, or they took our course, or they took a course from a training partner. I don't even know necessarily how intensely they may have taken that course, because there's ways to blow through courses and feel pretty good about it and then jump in and take the test. And if you did that, if you do that, you will not be ready, not based on all of the feedback that I've seen. So,
Darrell, there's one question about pass rates. Is that information you can share?
I can share an aggregate that we're at about half, and that's with a free retake. With the free retake, it does go up on the second attempt, but not by a bunch. So. Yeah. Well, so with the feedback in mind, still, what people are saying and what I pulled out here is that You've got to take the time to read the Hyperledger official manuals and documentation, and be familiar with it, right? So again, the training course is okay, but this is a technology that you're going to be working with and that you have to understand. And the official documentation is there, and you have to know where to find it, how to work through it easily to find what you're looking for, that kind of thing. Practice doing labs or anything hands-on. We'll talk, and it sounds like we're going to talk maybe in your study group, certainly the community resources that are available. This study group is a community resource, so you're already way out in front just by searching this out. And I can tell you many people did not do that, but to be fair, these study groups are now starting to form. I think that first wave has caused a lot of upswell and realization that proper preparation is necessary. A lot of people said there was too many questions for a 2-hour exam. Depending on the exam, there's either 16 or 26 questions. Questions is a bit misleading. They're tasks to be completed in a command line interface environment. There won't be enough time, no matter what you do and how well you prepare. I think I want to set the stage based on the feedback that I saw that you'll probably run out of time anyway. But that's okay. I think that based on how you do as you go through and complete the tasks, running out of time is not the worst case scenario. And you don't have to go in order either. You can, you'll see all the questions which you can click through and complete questions, tasks. Yeah, clearly people feel 2 hours is not enough, and they're probably right. There probably isn't. Take advantage of the free retake. Again, this is important. I don't suggest you just jump in and burn your first take without preparing, because there's still a lot of work to be done to go through and pass it on the free retake. There's no limit to how many times you can purchase an exam. So even to say there's one free retake, that's true. There's also, you can also find, whether it's your employer or whether your employer pays for the first time, but you decide to go and pay and grab your second set, that's fine too. There's nothing stopping you from that. But having comfort with the exam environment, that can definitely help when it's time to take the retake. I think that's for sure.
Darrell, before you move on, there was one question. Do the certificates expire?
Yes, 3 years.
3 years.
I think there are some 2-year IT certifications out there. I think 3 years the standard. I think with blockchain technology or most open source project, you can probably say 3 years is even a long time. Certainly there are more traditional certifications that might run 3 to 5 years. I have seen. Again, I think that's pretty far on the outside of what may still be relevant in that technology. So.
All right, great. A couple other questions came in too. You had said that it's not multiple choice; it's more task based. So how is that task evaluated?
So there's a scoring technology behind the scenes that runs through task completion, and everything is logged. So what's happened to complete that task is evaluated, and the system will score that.
Great, thanks. And the other question was about, it looked like it was answered in the chat, about how long do you have to take the free retest?
You have a 12-month window to take both. So if you purchase the exam, first of all, you've got to quite a few months if you're holding on to that. Say you have the coupon code or the redemption or the registration code. You have a few months before that expires, and that varies depending on where you got it. As soon as you register for the exam the first time, the 12-month window starts to tick. You, at any time in that 12-month window, you take your first attempt. If you are unsuccessful, the system will reschedule, auto reschedule. What am I saying? It will automatically set up your reschedule process, where you would then go in and pick the next available time that you want within the remaining 12-month original window. So if you don't take your first attempt till month 11 and you are unsuccessful, you've only got a 4-week window where you would schedule your second attempt. Does that make sense?
Great. I think that answered the question. And then 2 other questions. If you want to move on, let me know, and we can hold these, or we can ask them now. Do you have a preference?
Let's hit a couple more if they are there, and then because we still want to get to some of the training feedback.
All right. So the other questions, real quick: are the results announced immediately, or is there a delay after completion of the exam?
It's not immediate. I believe it's 48. I believe it's 48 hours. And what I'm going to do, I think on the next slide, I'm going to point you to the resources and you can find all of the documentation and user guides just for taking our exams. And all.
Oh, great. And that might answer the next question. They're asking if there are demo environments. Yeah, maybe we move on to the resources.
Yeah, for sure. So just a screenshot of the exam environment for those interested. You can see how the tasks are laid out. And I don't think this is actually a Hyperledger exam. It's just a screen capture. I think we blurred out what exam it was, but the tasks are there, and the terminal window is where you complete the tasks. And as you'll see in the resources, there are other tabs in your browser that you're allowed to have open with respect to documentation. That's something we want to point out. There was feedback that I saw that some candidates said, "I can't believe you're not allowed to look up anything." And well, that just isn't the case, because I would agree with that candidate. That would make it pretty hard. So yeah, there's ways that you can set up notepads for copying, pasting in things that you wouldn't want to maybe type all the way out, things like that. So this is exactly what I was talking about, the exam preparation side. So for each of the tests that we have, I highly recommend you need to spend the time to go through the preparation resources, not just training for the exam, but spend the time to prepare for the exam itself and the exam environment. I can click out to it in a second, but we have the handbook, the exam tips, and the exam FAQ that we try to add to. A lot of that feedback does go into expanding that FAQ. I think I pulled the one out for the CHFA. All of these on the site under certification catalog. They also show up under the training catalog. Certification catalog, and then click the exam that you're interested in, and all of the information is here. The domains and competencies for the exam, percentages. Again, I'll caution you, just looking at these domains and competencies, finding a training course by itself and studying them, that's going to only get you halfway, right? You still, these are the domains and competencies that are tested on, and there are tasks for that, but you want to have a level of understanding that regardless of the task under that competency, that you can perform it. The policies and resources section that is here, and exam tips. Would be here. Let's see. There we go. You can see here we're drilling into some of the details. The ID that you need to show to the web proctor, hardware compatibility checks. The exam results will be emailed 36 hours from the time the exam was completed. The resources allowed. Technical instructions, right? You don't want to have to worry about this at the time of the exam. You have enough to focus on, right? So all the stress leading in, take all of that away by understanding what you're getting into. That's the message here. Okay. Yeah, I just thought it's not a bad time to remind everyone that, this is my opinion upon review of the exam feedback, okay? Having gone through essentially all of it myself over days, weeks, months. I think a lot of assumptions are being made on previous exam experiences. I mentioned that. As I've already shown you, the exams, all LF exams are completely different. Oh, let's go back. And as I said, clearly understand what you're getting into and what resources are allowed while you're testing. And also understand what's not allowed, like things on your desk or moving your lips while you read. They cover this in the FAQ. But remember, it's a bit invasive, right? This is a web proctored exam. The proctor is going to ask you to move your camera around the room and show the camera under your desk so that you don't have someone hiding there, feeding you the answers. It sounds kind of funny, but everything they've come up with is because something's probably happened that way. Use the tools described and provided by the test provider to test your system in advance and test your browser in advance. Things like that. You want to take all that stress away and just focus on the tasks at hand. And clearly, by looking through the feedback, more people would benefit by doing this. I'm going to leave exams and go to training if everyone's cool with that. I went through the same exercise. Again, the LF training courses that I'm going to be talking about. I can't speak to the other ones from the other Hyperledger training partners, but the ones that I can look at, I went through the same exercise. And again, if you go through those courses, you will get the end of course survey, which I can assure you we do look at. Let's see. We have the Hyperledger Fabric Fundamentals, the Fabric Admin, and the Sawtooth Admin. I haven't listed a course here for the LFD. It's going to be LFD 273 or 4, I believe, for the Fabric Developer. I do have a slide for what's coming up, and that course is listed there. Yeah, and honestly, I think I would have liked these to been better. I think that the training, our own training, I wish it was better, but it's a work in progress alongside a new technology, right? Where we're doing a lot of this, in real time as the technology gets developed. And I would commit to say that these are only going to get better over time. Having said that, the recurring error complaint, I guess, that I would point out here is typos and errors in the lab, which is kind of a big deal, because if you're looking at a lab and typing a certain command and if there's a typo in it, Well, that's not going to work. And so what I'm going to point to is that in almost every case, once the person in the training realized that the course forums were active, and each course in the introduction points you to the course forums. I'm going to point you to the course forums here in a minute. But the course forums, everyone's almost always figured out what that error was and put the correction in the course forum. And I want to say you need to be in the course forums anyways. That's where the community is interacting over these trainings, good, bad, or otherwise. You want to be with your peers at the same time, and that holds true for the members of the study group as well. You've got that in addition to the forums. You've got your own peer group where you're chatting and interacting with each other. So the second most common issue, the labs are not up to date with the latest release. The solution there, of course, to work constantly to update the labs with less time for review, which points back to the issue above, right, where the course administrators and the subject matter experts are working on these things all the time. So I think that's leading back into the typos and errors issue. Hey, I wish the courses were perfect, so I wouldn't have to talk about this, but they're not, and they're never going to be. This is real-time technology, and you're entering into a career where this is going to be something that you're better off just getting good at solving problems as they come up, than looking for something that's going to be written perfectly. I don't really think that's going to happen.
Yeah, Darrell, thanks. That maps to some of the comments and the feedbacks are in the chat. So thank you for covering that, about how they feel like the exam or the training isn't on its own enough to prepare somebody for the exam. That is, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not. Yeah, it's definitely not. And in a perfect world, that's what we want it to be. When I say the collective we, not the Linux Foundation, but what I want to just be able to take a course, cover the modules, and write the test. And that's how we went to school, right? That's how traditional things work, right? And maybe you've got a good professor who gives you, points you in the right direction or says this is going to be on the test. But oftentimes they didn't, and there's big pieces of the test where you didn't study that chapter and you wish you did, and like you said, I can't believe you put that on the test. You never even mentioned that in class. Well, that's all real, right? And I don't know that you could come up with a training course, or even if you should, that would just cover everything, to the nth degree, without allowing you to actually open up that, that part of the study where you have to figure things out. You have to reach out and talk to people. You have to engage in the community to be successful, because that's really what we're all after, right, in the end. And I think that's how you're going to be successful in a job, in a career with this, is having that peer group that you're contacting and working with behind the scenes to fix problems collaboratively. Right? That's what should really be happening here, I think, bigger picture. So one way to do that is the course forums. As I mentioned, linux.com is a web property that the Linux Foundation maintains, and under resources, the forums can be found there. I'll just flip over. All of the courses that we're talking about are in the forum, and they're, if the course is active, then the forum is active. Let's see. I think we just added, I think the Hyperledger group and some of the study circle forums, but I don't know if they've been announced or published yet. That's really new. I'm not sure, David, if you know if those are online yet, but we don't need them to be just yet if you know what course you're in, because you can go to the forum itself. So let's see. I was looking for LFD 271 is a good one. Let's see. This is where I was talking about, if there's something happening in a particular lab, this is where you come to find the answer. So you can see in lab 5, there's error 2 unknown error, like 300 people have now interacted with that, particular thing. So we're cutting in on some time, so I won't go through all the forms. The main thing, obviously, is to know where they are and to be involved. Find your answers there or ask questions. And someone had asked David, about digital badges. We certainly do have those. There, you would earn a digital badge for any of the courses. This is the bottom, just to the right of center. That's the Linux Foundation course completion badge. And then, of course, the certification badges are there. And those you're familiar with. What's coming up? I mentioned the LFD 272 Hyperledger Fabric for developers, targeting June to support the new CHFD cert. You can certainly get ahead of that. I know the study group, you're going to be talking about that. We hope to have a course out for that soon. I saw in the course pipeline that there's more of an introductory level MOOC, July and August, for Hyperledger Fabric for application developers. And let's see, sorry. As far as certs, I think the leader in discussion right now with the community is something around Besu. David, at some point you may be able to speak to that more. That's just the buzz from the cert side with what I've seen in the meetings. What I've heard from is happening in the meetings. And the existing CHFA, that's a full refresh is coming up in Q2 for based on feedback. And that's essentially it. I'm going to leave these slides in for reference purposes, but they basically just show our overall, I guess, our verticals or our pipelines categorically of the courses that we offer, which is very extensive portfolio. I was just going to flip through to the blockchain slide. Basically just, when we're going to an organization or to a potential training partner, we would talk, when we get to blockchain, just have a list of courses there. And that color coding just kind of ties back to our online catalog.
Thanks for sharing that screen. While you're on that real quick, and that addresses the question. So it sounds like there are training materials for ND areas in IRSA, but not certifications yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
To warrant a certification, the community has to be strong, has to be active, and there has to be, we really have to identify that need. To certify for the sake of certifying is never worth it. But if there's a pull from the workplace, from the career side, then it certainly is worth it.
So Darrell, in the certification study circle, we are going with the sawtooth admin, and then fabric developer, and then fabric admin. How do you think about this sequence?
Well, I think the sequence is fine. I think that all you really need to do is match the sequence to your demand, because it really, they're all important, and one might be more important for another. It all depends on, I would say the short to midterm goals of those pursuing the certification, depending on their job needs, right? Certainly Sawtooth is as important, but at the same time, it's a smaller niche right now based on how Fabric is performing in the commercial marketplace. So, you know, like, it doesn't mean that there's not a shortage of talent on the Sawtooth side, because there is. When you match that up to the job market, they may be harder to find. That, I don't know. That they're there. It just depends on the path you take to search them out. So bang for your buck based on what's happening commercially, then it seems like Fabric's the current front runner there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really roundabout way to not answer your question, I guess, because I don't think there's a wrong answer for you know, for your approach, because as long as you're listening to the study circle.
Yeah.
Anything else I can?
So there are some other
can
questions.
answer?
Did you have more slides, or you?
That's it. No, sorry, sorry, you're waiting for me. No, I just was just gonna think that's it.
Okay, so well, we can do a couple of things. I've been copying questions in the chat as you've been talking that we haven't already covered, and maybe we'll go through some of those, and then we can open it up to see if people want to, you know, ask questions directly. But here, I'll just go through some of these. There's a question: is there any refresh for the Sawtooth certification due this year?
I believe they are actively working on a refresh.
Great.
Yes.
And then that's related to another one. They're saying currently the Fabric exam is in 1.4.x. When can we expect 2.x?
Well, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I would say definitively, although the cycle time between refreshing the exams from when the technology release happens is relatively short. So, but we'll also keep the exam on what version is currently, you know, the commercial version. So I don't think we want to jump out in front of it too much. But so we'll always test on, you know, the stable version, the commercial version.
Okay. And then one related question: if an exam does get upgraded to a new version, what is the process? Are there free retakes available for that, or how does that work for the person who took it on the earlier version?
No, you're certified. If you took it and passed on the earlier version, you're certified for 3 years on that version. Again, at that point, regardless of the version you take it on, you're just going to kind of be self-aware and self-educate on the version changes as they come out. But there's no need to retest on it.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, maybe you would, but it's just not practical to do that.
Another question about the exam. Since it's online, what if there's a network problem during it? Is there anything to handle that situation?
Yeah, and it does happen. However, the testing platform accounts for that, and those outages, you know, we're aware of them. The testing provider's aware of them. It will pick up where you left off with no loss of time, so you'll be given that time back. If it's a disaster, then I mean, and that's rare, but it can happen, and it has happened. Then we'll give you another exam session. Unfortunate, but that's real life too.
Great. There's one question I'm not familiar with what this means, so it might be familiar to you, Darrell. They're saying, can these exams be taken in Prometric or Pearson? Are those maybe those are different platforms?
Yeah, no, they cannot. We use our own testing platform provisioning system. You take the exam online at home or at a private office, or a library that where you can be uninterrupted. We specifically don't offer it through the main testing vendors, right? There's a huge fee for that, and two, our practical tests they don't need to be presented at a bricks and mortar location.
Gotcha. I see a few different questions, 3 different questions around programming languages in the exam. So I'll read one of them and it might cover the other questions. Which programming languages will be available for, this one's asking specifically for the Fabric developer one, but maybe we can answer it in general. And it says the beta test was only with Node.js.
Well, I'm probably not the best person to answer those specific, more technology related questions. So, but that's something we can find out.
Great.
What was the Node.js beta question? We did. Was it when is that coming?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Kent. I'm with the Study Circle. So I was a beta tester for the Fabric developer exam. And at that time, it was only in Node.js. So recently I went to the website to think about registering for the real exam. And it gave me a list of choices, but I wasn't convinced that, for example, Golang or Java was available. So since Darrell's here, I just wanted to see whether he had any information that all 3 languages were available.
I can find that out fairly quickly if you want to fire me an email or David. But
actually, I've got a very important question. Can I just ask before we run out of time? Because this is really important for the study circle. So let's project in the future, say 3 months' time, when some of us have taken the exam, and then we come back. And so the study circle is for us to help others, self-help and help others in the team. So the problem is with there are rules that we can't talk about the exam afterwards. So how do we help people within the study circle after the exam if we're not allowed to talk about the exam?
Well, would you say that I was talking about the exam? Because I didn't talk about the tasks. So, and I guess because that's an excellent question. But what is that? I guess I want to think about what that really means. You wouldn't want to give away what the tasks are, that kind of thing. But what I was talking about, I think, would be helpful, yet I certainly wouldn't think I was talking about the exam. But that also might be more related to beta test. Was that something that came up specifically with beta testers as well, that you don't want to talk about being in the beta? You certainly wouldn't want to give a kind of foreshadow or give away a lot about what might be coming that specific, I guess. But certainly the study circle,
not just the beta testing, but I've taken all the exams already. So I've been helping the others who have never seen the exam, trying to get accustomed to the environment. So, but as we move along, we need to start talking about actual practical coding and practices and things we can do hands-on. So it's very hard to help others when we can't talk about examples.
Yeah, and Ken, I would say, just as a general point about the study circle, if you or any other study circle members have questions like that going forward, as Darrell said, we're here as a resource. You don't just have a chance to talk to us here. Feel free to reach out to me and I can start an email thread over Darrell. So just as we're here generally to help. So I think those are good questions, and just please.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And I do want to keep an eye on the time. I would say thank you for jumping in. Why don't we let other people ask their questions directly, because I think I've covered most of them. But first, Darrell, could you show on the screen how people can get the 30% discount? And then while you're pulling that up, why don't we hand it off? Mulshankar, I know you had a question. Why don't you take it, and then other people can ask after you.
Yeah, sure. So we are running, thanks for the reminder, David, we are running that Anywhere 30 promo right now. And I think if you go anywhere, let's see, anywhere on our site right now, it's in the header, I think on every page. So all you need to know is that the code is Anywhere 30, and that at any time, anytime you go click through to register for a course or a training course or an exam, you just put it here.
Great, and that's 30% off.
We're 30. Boom, just like that.
Great, and that's 30% off through May, the end of May?
Correct.
Great, Thanks. Mulshankar, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, basically during your presentation, I see that you have shared that people are attempting the exam before the means less than 1 year of experience. During the study circle, we have decided to go with the Sawtooth first. As I am working on the Hyperledger fabric since last 1.5 years, so I said, okay, let's go for it. And now I am a bit shaky after seeing this. So what are your thoughts? I haven't worked on the Sawtooth much. I have only the know-how about it. So should we? What are your thoughts? Should we go for it, or means how hard it will be?
I mean, I would say in your case, and you know, it's difficult to go case by case, but the fact that you have that experience in Fabric is certainly going to help you on Sawtooth. What I was seeing was experience in no Hyperledger software at all. So not a year less or none. If you've been working in Fabric for a year or more, then there's obviously specific tasks to Sawtooth. However, you're already familiar with completing tasks. So I think that I don't want to scare you off of the exam. Again, that's what the free retake, I think, in your situation would be really good, because you may be overly concerned about the experience, whereas you might be okay because your experience is in Fabric. I would say if it's those that had no experience were in shock. Yeah, I think they were the most shocked.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Darrell and Mulshankar. Are there other questions? I think I covered most of the ones from the chat, but I apologize if I missed any. Would anybody like to ask a new question? Feel free to unmute or type in chat or raise your hand. If not, here, I can answer another question that wasn't directly related to training, but it was related to Hyperledger. Let me just pull up a link. Sorry. I'm just pulling up the link. One second.
Yeah, I'm glad we could reach out to all ages.
Are you sleepy? Are you sleepy?
Okay.
Late into your...
Sorry, my Zoom chat doesn't want to let me put anything into it anymore. So I'm sorry.
You can't. Yeah, I found that out too. That the Zoom security has taken away all, taken the hypertext that you have to copy and paste it out.
And it's not letting me type in anything. It might be something with my client on my end. I was typing in the chat earlier.
Oh, really?
Now I'm trying to type. Anyway, I won't spend more time on that. Maybe I'll share my screen really quickly. If you, Darrell, can unshare.
Can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
Just for everyone to know. So in the exam, you can only open one extra tab from the internet, and that can only link to the official documentation and only to that specific version of the documentation. So for example, if I'm taking Fabric, it'll be version 1.4.1. I can't look at 2.0. I can't look at 1.0. And with Sawtooth, it's version 1.0.5. I can't look at 1.2 and so on. Just to confirm that with you and everyone else.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. Thank you for confirming.
If people are able to see my screen, I'm pointing to the tutorials page on the Hyperledger website. again, not directly relevant maybe to the trainings, but there was a question about somebody saying they weren't able to find up-to-date tutorials. So apologies if this information wasn't easy to find. Maybe you just hadn't come across this page on the website, but I will point it out because it is a good way to level up your experience with a given technology. And as Darrell was saying, the exams, the trainings themselves aren't sufficient preparation for the exam. So you might want to work through some of these tutorials. So it is one of the most highly visited pages on the Hyperledger website. So I do want to just share it as a resource, and that was relevant for the question that came up before. You can see there's a number of different tutorials for a number of the different projects. Those are all here. You can public, you can work through those as well. So, perhaps doing some of these could be something you do on your own or in the study circle as well, installing Besu, for example, working through that as a group or what have you. But just be aware that these are some resources that may help as well.
So David, since we're running out of time, would it be possible for us to collate some more questions during our study meetings on Saturdays and then forward it to you and Darrell in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's have an open dialogue, and we can, sure. As you have questions, send them to us, and we can figure out the right channel for this. Any questions you have, other people in the community may have as well. So maybe we want to have post on the mailing list. Why don't we figure that where to have that conversation? As you have questions, let us know.
Yes, so basically for the study circle participants, what we'll do there, we'll create a separate channel, the Q&A for which you are addressing it to the Hyperledger team. You can dump up your question and it will be just, or maybe it will be just forwarded to the Hyperledger, like David or Darrell, and they will be answering it.
Yeah, for sure. So send us questions as they come up. Darrell and I are here to support. We want everybody who wants to learn about Hyperledger to be successful at doing that. And so thank you for getting the study circle going. And I will say that the study circle is a great concept. I'm really excited about bringing it maybe to other parts of the community. I've shared it with, I think we could do this in other languages, for example. I've already shared the study circle concept, Prajit, with our Japanese community. They run meetups in Japanese, and I said this is maybe something they could consider. I've shared it also with some of the organizers in South America who've run a meetup recently in Spanish. So I'd love to see more study circles happening in more languages, and really, it seems like a great way for the community to, have support for what they're doing, and maybe even other regional ones. I know not everybody maybe can attend the time, Prajit, where you have yours. So maybe, an APAC friendly study circle at times that fits more for maybe people in Australia, for example, or that. So if people are interested in the study circle concept and want to start your own, I would say, Darrell and I can support you with that as well. So just reach out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, David, for the support.
Yep, absolutely. I'll echo that, David. And David, let's have a look at those newly added forums for study circles. That might be something that could end up being one of the channels we could find someone to moderate on.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Do you want to share your screen again? Sorry, I'm done sharing my screen. You're welcome to bring that back up.
Yeah, they looked like they were newly added. Maybe you and I look at those offline and see and make sure we have a purpose for those and moderate them. I know we were just adding them. I think the e-learning folks, the forum moderators had added those in at our request. I just don't think we've had a chance yet to know to talk about them or to announce them. So.
Okay. No, that sounds good. But yeah, I mean, just to echo what we've been saying, yeah, this is great. Thank you for inviting us to speak about this. And if there's other ways we can help, we'll just keep the conversation going. While we're still on the call, are there any other final questions for me about Hyperledger or Darrell about the trainings and certifications? Wait, I see some stuff in the chat.
Mock tests.
Mock test.
There's not a mock test. I think that the tutorials might run through some of those environments, but at this time there isn't an actual mock test set up like you can do maybe more traditionally. I think we can share those slides too.
Yeah, yeah. How do you want to share them out? I mean, if we send the link to Prajit, he can send it to everybody who RSVP'd, perhaps, or
yeah, something like that.
I could also link to him on the recording if you want. If you want to send me the link to Darrell when I post it on YouTube, I'll point to the slide.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I can. Yeah. So David, for sure, we'll figure out a good place to put those. They're a little. It's a little graphics heavy, so you wouldn't want to be mailing it around, but certainly we can PDF it and stick it somewhere.
Yeah. And I see a recommendation put on the wiki. Yeah, we can do that as well.
And David, regarding the forum, like if people from the study circle are having questions, we can also pipeline and redirect them to the forum where they can ask questions and you can also answer them. That is also can be a good option, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the course forums are already active, so your study circle, you could interact in there on behalf of your study circle. That's certainly an option, right? So if the group comes up with one question and they nominate someone to ask it in the forum and get back to the group, something like that, I think that would work.
But it's a public forum, right? Anyone can just check out the so maybe
it's a public forum. Anyone can look at it. You have to sign up with a Linux Foundation ID if you want to participate in it. But you don't have to be in the course to participate in it. You just have to sign up.
Yeah, sure. I think that will be a much better option. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Well, we may be set. Thank you again, Prajit, for organizing this, and Darrell for speaking. I will, again, look for this on YouTube in the next hour or two. I'll get the posting started now. Yeah, and again, if we can help with any other questions, please let us know.
I see that question from Don. Sorry, I'm just scrolling back through. It's a good one. I don't have the answer, but he's asking, yeah, you're allowed to get out to the documentation on that one tab, but can you link out of the documentation or just the main link? That would be
you can link anywhere. You only have one tab, so you can link anywhere so long as it's an official Hyperledger documentation within your version. So if the link goes from 2.0 to 1.0, then you're not allowed to do that. It has to stay within your version, but you can go anywhere within. So CA, SDK, anything's okay, but you only have one tab.
I can say you get one tab. Yeah. Right on. That's all I got. Yeah, appreciate being given the opportunity to talk to your group. So
yeah, appreciate it as well. Yeah, well, thanks again, everyone, and yeah, hope everybody stays safe, and we'll talk more later.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Yep. You're welcome. Bye.